right, kiddos, today we are going to talk about something called point-slope formula. It is another way to write a linear equation. We wrote it from graphs yesterday. Now we're going to write it using something called point-slope formula. And like the name says, in order to write an equation in point-slope form, you have to have a point and you have to have the slope. Any point will do, but you still have to have a point. Now this is what point-slope form looks like. Becomes y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And it's just a formula. We're going to plug stuff into here so that we can get a linear equation that hopefully ends up in slope-intercept form, or I don't know why I wrote that x 3 times. It didn't want to register. Or in standard form like we learned yesterday. So it will end up in one of those two forms, but this is just where we're going to start. And so here are the things that you need to know. M is the slope, and then y1 and x1 are the coordinates of your point. You will never, ever, ever plug anything into y or x. The y1 and the x1, they have a number on them. That's where we will plug in numbers. Okay? The y and the x without a number, we will leave y and x. They just stay variables, because when you write an equation like in slope-intercept form, you have to have the variables y and x. So there they are. They're right there, and we're going to leave them alone. So number one asks us to write an equation that represents a line having a slope of 2 that passes through the point 7, negative 2, and they want the equation in slope-intercept form, which means I needed to end up in y equals mx plus b. But I'm going to start here because that's what I know. I have a point and I have the slope. So I'm going to write what I know. So my formula is y minus y1, and in this case y1 is going to be the y value of my point, which is negative 2. So I end up with y minus negative 2, which is the same as y plus 2, because when I do minus a negative, the negatives make a plus, equals the slope, which is 2, times the quantity x minus x1, which is the x value of my point, 7. Now I'm going to just simplify this so I can make it look like slope-intercept form. So the first thing I have to do is get rid of parentheses, so I'm going to distribute here. So I'm going to have y plus 2 equals 2x minus 14, because I just multiplied 2 times both parts of this. Now in order for it to be in slope-intercept form, I need this y to be by itself, so I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. And when I do that, I end up with y equals 2x minus 16, because that negative 14 minus 2 becomes minus 16. There it is in slope-intercept form. So now the slope is 2, like it should be, and the y-intercept is negative 16. I would not have been able to get that from here, but this is a starting point to get us to here. So number 2 asks us to write an equation in standard form of a line that has a slope of negative 4 and that goes through this point. So we're going to do the same thing. Do y minus y1, and y1 is going to be 5. It's the y coordinate of my point over here, equals the slope of negative 4 times x minus negative 1, which becomes plus 1, as I have the two negatives. We want this to be in standard form, but so to do that I still have to distribute. So I have y minus 5 equals negative 4x minus 4. I just distributed my negative 4. And then I want it to end up this way, ax plus by equals c. So I need the x and y on the one side and all the numbers on the other. So I'm going to go ahead and move it so it's in slope-intercept first. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides. That'll get my y by itself. So I'm going to have y equals negative 4x plus 1. So negative 4 plus 5 is 1. And then to make it in standard form, I've got to get my negative 4x onto the other side. So I'll add 4x. And so now I have 4x plus y equals 1. I have no fractions or decimals, and my a is positive, so therefore this really is standard form. So there's my equation. Now I'm going to change things up a little bit. Number 3 says to write an equation in slope-intercept form. I want you to we're just going to write an equation of a line. And when we do it, we're going to sort of just leave it in slope form, because there are going to be times when you might see a question. They did this last year on the STAR test. They had to write an equation of a line, and they had to leave it partially in point slope form. So that's what we're going to do, and we're just going to leave it so that you can see that it's okay. So we're going to write this one, so we're going to do y minus y1, which is 1, y value of your point. The slope is 3/2 times x minus -4, so it becomes plus 4. And we're gonna, now that is left in point slope form. You could stop right there. Sometimes they'll simplify and get rid of the parentheses and leave it like this. Y minus 1 equals 3/2 x. So I've distributed here, and then I have to distribute here. Well, 3 times 4 is 12, and 12 divided by 2 is 6, so it becomes plus 6. They might also just stop there. This is still an equation of the line. They don't say what form, it just says write an equation of a line. So there it is, that's an equation of a line. You could stop. If you wanted to put it in slope-intercept, you could then add 1 to both sides and get the y by itself. You could move the -3/2 over if you needed to put it in standard, but you can just leave it. So that's good practice and good thing to see. So number 4 and number 5 ask you to write the equation and then that passes through the point. There is a graph there just in case you want to graph it and then write your equation. So you can, we could graph it first, or you know, you could ignore the graph altogether. So number 4 says write an equation in slope-intercept form of a line having undefined slope that passes through this point 5, -3. Well, undefined slope. The first thing you're going to have to ask yourself is undefined slope means what? Well, undefined slope means I have a vertical line. Vertical lines have undefined slope, and their equations are always x equals, because no matter what, x is the same number. So I have undefined slope. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to graph it and just show you. The point 5, -3 is right here. And if I'm going to have to draw a line that has undefined slope, we know it's vertical, so it's right here. It goes through this point, and if you will look on this line, every point on this line from here down to here and on forever and ever, no matter where you are on this line, x is going to be 5. X is 5 here, x equals 5 at this point, x equals 5 down here at this point. X is 5 always, which is why the equation is always x equals, because x stays the same number. So undefined slope means it's going to be x equals, and if I look at my point, x equals 5. There is the equation of that line. So let's try number 5. We're going to write an equation in slope-intercept form of a line that has a slope of 0 and that passes through the point -3, 4. Well, if it has a slope of 0 slope, that means I have a horizontal line. And horizontal lines, y is always the same number. So if I look at my point here, y equals 4, which tells me that my equation is going to be y equals 4. For the same reason, if I were to plot my point, -3, 1, 2, 3, positive 4, it's going to be a horizontal line, and no matter where I am on that horizontal line, y is going to equal 4. It equals 4 at this point, it equals 4 at this point, it would equal 4 at a point way, way over here to the right, or way, way over here to the left. But no matter what, y is going to equal 4, and so you don't even have to draw the picture. Undefined slope, it's going to be x equals the x coordinate. 0 slope, it's going to be y equals the y coordinate. So just if you have a point, it's super easy. So let's practice just a couple more. So we're going to write an equation in standard form that represents a line with a slope of 2 and an x-intercept of 5. This time all they told you was the x-intercept. You don't have a point. So we're going to have to write it as an ordered pair. Remember, the x-intercept is where y equals 0, so it's the point 5, 0. And so now you have a line. So we're going to y minus 0 is equal to 2 times x minus 5. It says standard form, so we want the x and y together. So y minus 0 just becomes y equals 2x minus 10. And so in standard form, all the x and y have to be on the same side. So I'm going to subtract 2x, which gives me negative 2x plus y equals negative 10. Now the only problem with this is that I cannot have a negative term in front of the x. There can't be a negative number there, so I have to fix this. Well, the only way to do that is to multiply this entire thing by -1. The 1 won't change the numbers, but the negative will take care of my sign. So this becomes positive 2x minus y equals positive 10. So basically I just changed all the signs. It is now in standard form. Couple more questions. So a repair person charges $25 an hour plus an initial service call. The bill for 3 hours was $105. In the problem, what is the slope? Well, slope is the rate of change. It's the rate that something is happening, and in this case, that's $25 per hour, so the slope is 25. So what information would be in a point on the equation of this situation? Well, we know that for 3 hours, it was $105. That will make a point. What does this point represent? It represents that 3 hours, the charge was $105. So we need to write an equation in slope-intercept form for this situation. All we know is the slope and a point. So we're going to start where it uses H and C. We will convert to H and C once we are done plugging into point slope form. So we're going to go y equals, or y minus, y1, which is 105, equals your slope of 25 times x minus 3. We're going to distribute, so you have y minus 105 equals 25x minus 75. And then I'm going to have to add 105 to both sides, so I get y equals 25x, because that was my slope. And then when I add 105, I get 30. So we're going to convert. H is the number of hours, and C is the total charge. Well, it's $25 per hour, so it's going to become C equals 25H plus 30. So that's your equation in slope-intercept form. These are the same thing. I just simply substituted the variables they asked us. So what is the initial service call charge? Well, the $25 is the per hour charge. That means the 30 needs to be my initial service call charge, so it's $30. And so to find my bill for 7 hours, I got to plug in 7. So I have to do 25 times 7 plus 30, and I use my calculator. It's going to be $205. So that's how it can be used in a real life situation. Okay? So number 8, the graph a line passing through the point -10, 1 with the same slope as the line graphed below on the grid. So the first thing I need to do is find the slope of this line. So I'm going to find 2 pretty points. So here's one and here's one. And I'm going to count my rise over my run. So I went up 2 over 3. So my slope is 2/3. So I need a line that has a slope of 2/3 that goes through this point. So we're going to use point slope form. So I'm going to do y minus 1 equals 2/3 times x plus 10, because that's a -10. So now I have y minus 1 equals 2/3 x plus, now 2 times 10 is 20 over 3, and we're going to leave that a fraction because it is not pretty as a decimal. Now it does say to graph it right here, so we are going to graph it. So I need the point -10, 1, and then I need to use my slope 2/3, so that's up 2 and over 1, 2, 3, up 2 and over 1, 2, 3. I could keep doing that, but anyway, there's what the line would look like if you were to graph it, and they're parallel, because they have the same slope, so they shouldn't cross. Now, part B asks for us to write the equation of the line we graphed in standard form. So here we are. In point slope form, I need to convert it to standard. So I'm going to have to add 1 to both sides. So I'm going to have 2/3 x, and I'm going to have to do 20 over 3 plus 1. And the cool thing is my calculators can take care of that for me. It becomes, 23 over 3. Now I'm going to have to subtract my 2/3 x. So I'm going to subtract 2/3 x because it's standard form. X and y have got to be on the same side. So now I have negative 2/3 x plus y equals 23 over 3. Well, that can't be standard form because I have a negative a and I have fractions. So let's take care of both at the same time. Nice thing is my fractions have the same denominator. So if I multiply everything by 3, I can get rid of my fractions. And if I multiply by a -3, I can take care of that negative. So these cancel, leaving me with 2x. But then I have to multiply here, so this becomes minus 3y. And then this 3 will cancel out that 3, but the negative stays, so it becomes negative 23. So that is now in standard form. That's what the equation would look like. And so that's point slope form. You just plug in and then you use it to translate that equation into the form you are asked for. So that's point slope form. We'll practice this tomorrow. I'll see you then.